personally, growing up and especially in my early days, I used to always hear that yes, to become a better leader, to succeed, emotional intelligence is something really important. And I did mention about IQ versus EQ. So for me, growing up, I've always thought that emotional intelligence is something really complex and hard to master. So can you break it down for us in a very simple and easy to understand language?
Yes, absolutely. All of us know about it, but just from a defining perspective, I'm sure all of us understand that we feel multiple emotions. So if I have to break it down, what is emotion? Energy in motion is emotion. All of us have a certain kind of an energy. Now, what energy are we sensing? It could be any kind of happiness, anger, sadness, joy, ecstasy. It could be various kinds of vibes that we are generating based on the thoughts that we have. And according to that, there is a certain emotion that is getting generated. Now, these are waves of emotion that come to us. So it's an energy in motion. Sometimes we know we can't control those emotions. So we have to divert those emotions and then up our own energy levels or up our vibes so that we are able to shift our life. So that's in crux, if I talk about emotions, we all as human beings will always feel that, and we all human beings will be able to sense it. And we as human beings have this energy, have this intelligence to be able to understand that there is something going on within us. That's the intelligence that lies with us. Are we using that intelligence? It's sometimes if you look at it, people say, oh, intelligence and emotions don't go along together. But, as the researchers are moving further in their studies, it's very clear that we have a certain set of skill sets as human beings that we bring to the table. And those, that make us unique and have been helped us to survive as we move forward and evolved as human beings, has been the emotional intelligence that has sustained us. There are a lot of researchers, as you rightly pointed out, that talk about the fact that, emotional intelligence helps us move forward. So if you consider this, there was this quote very recently I was reading that was published in some of the magazines that talked about IQ gets us the job, but EQ helps us in promotion. So consider this, that yes, if you really consider that IQ will get you your job, absolutely, it will help you. But to be able to make sure that you are able to do a great job, you will need EQ to survive through that job in the current times. So further, kind of talk about emotional intelligence. In simple words, we have this understanding as a human being that there are emotions that we would feel. How do we leverage those emotions to make our lives better? In a very layman language, I would like to explain that. And there are different methods and different ways of doing all of this. We'll talk more as we move forward.
So I think it's a very clear and a simple definition that you have given, that it's simply understanding your emotions better and leveraging it to your own personal, and we'll cover that, and especially about the professional success as well. So as we saw in this poll as well, that majority of the students are here to understand and how they can leverage emotional intelligence for professional success. So can you throw some light on this particular aspect, that yes, how can they use EQ to firstly land a job, and second advance in their particular profession, be it entrepreneurship or the job that they are in?
Absolutely. And to explain you better about the emotional intelligence quotient, so to say, did you hear a lot about EQ? There is a framework I would like to share with you that is majorly built by a person called Daniel Goleman. He's one of the top people who have researched in this space quite a lot. So I'll just share a slide with all of you that gives you a quick perspective when I talk about emotional intelligence. What does it really mean? So there are 4 aspects to it, Rang, which are important when it comes to emotional intelligence. One is self-awareness, which becomes very, very critical. The second is, how do we manage ourselves? How do we manage our emotions and continue to motivate ourselves? The other one being, how do we manage our relationships? How do we build our social awareness? So these are the four areas, four quadrants that you see that help us manage, emotional quotient or build our emotional quotient. So one is managing, knowing our own self better, managing our emotions to, the way we would like it towards the goal, recognizing and understanding other people's emotions, in that to actually build my own relationship with them that could lead into a lot of other support. I would like to talk about the fact that there are a lot of people, very successful people who talk about this, that relationships, the kind of relationships that we have define the quality of life that we live. So the quality of relationships define the quality of life. Now those quality of relationships are built by showcasing certain behaviors in relationships through, first, not just being aware of what you feel, but also being aware of what others feel. And when we are aware of both these aspects, it's easy for us to manage relationships. So when we look at it from a job perspective, being in HR for 20 plus years, I always look for people who have a very good attitude. Now, when I talk about attitude, what does it mean? When somebody is sensible enough to understand what that job entails, somebody who understands that how do we deal with emotions of other people, and somebody who would not. So let's say if we talk about a value called patience, let's say you're in a customer facing role, you need to know how to deal with your customers' emotions and your own emotions in that process also. Let's say if you're in a hotel or a retail store or even in any of those, sales pitches, you don't know what are the emotions of the other person ahead of you. But then spending some time to be able to give that space to them, being aware of what are you feeling, and also using that opportunity to build that relationship will help you get to the next level. So even going through a job interview is like a sales pitch. So consider this, that somebody who's sitting in front of you is another human being too. So how can we be more self-confident? Because again, being self-honest is the first step towards emotional intelligence. Being confident about ourselves, being confident about expressing ourselves, and also giving that space to be able to read the other person, that what do they want to hear, and then accordingly answering those questions always gets you further ahead in your competitive interviews, etc. So I would say that emotional intelligence helps in a lot of ways. Let's say if you end up being nervous, if you're not well prepared, it will show up in your interviews. So let's say, to be well prepared, you need to give time to the interview process. You need to be ready for it. So if you're emotionally, if the person has high emotional quotient, they know this, that what are my qualities. So it makes it easy for the, even the interviewer to be able to figure it out when they are in the interview. So there are a lot of ways and methods, if I talk about, where it becomes really, really, impactful in job interviewing too. So finding a job, it'll help a lot too if you focus on building your emotional quotient.
Absolutely. As you were explaining the scenario of a job interview and how one should leverage this particular situation with the interviewer. So I was recollecting my early days of interviewing, and so while I was working at Bose, the experience was such that we had to be very calm and composed while interacting with customers. So and naturally also I'm that personality that I'm often calm and composed, and that's how probably Bose found me to be a good fit and recruited me to work with Bose. So, but when I was interviewing for one of the other organizations, they wanted the person to be a little loud and outgoing. So I couldn't really figure out initially. But then when I went for that interview, I was outrightly rejected. So one One, because I did not really align my own personality to what they were looking at. But then later on, when I was able to get feedback about why I was rejected, I was given another chance to appear for the interview again after a cooling period. And I was able to exhibit those qualities as well, which was required. So I did some voice modulation, changed my body language, and I was able to crack that particular interview. So I thought to mention this example because you mentioned how in an interview setting also we can modulate, and
Yes.
yeah. So you have extensive experience in HR space, and you've scaled organizations as well from scratch at a global scale. Now, can you also share some of the real life or practical application of emotional intelligence, or some of the success stories where you found that the application of AI made a difference? Some of the practical real time examples from your experience.
Absolutely. Yeah. There are lots of some examples of great leaders that I worked with. And also, the fact that when I used empathy is the word I would say when we talk about showcasing towards our, people whom you are connecting to build relationship. When I showcased empathy, I was actively listening to the other person. It created a bond, and then that helped me to work through things as well. So one of the examples I can talk about being from Bose, and then I'll move to other organizations because that's the common connection for us. So I remember that one of the first times when I started leading a team, I was very, very lenient, considering that, the personality I was giving them a lot of space to operate out of. But what happened is that my boss, my CEO started asking me questions on, hey, Karuna, you are expected to complete a certain task. And this is, this recruitment, this work, etc., is not happening on time. And I would go back to the team and then ask them, and they'll give me, sometimes there would be some excuses, and they'll come back. And over the course of time, what was happening is things were getting very, very delayed. Now, when my boss gave me feedback, he said that, you need to make this work. And I went back to the team, and over the course of time, I started becoming very strict with them, which meant that every few hours I was asking them so many questions, constantly being after them. I was getting angry at them, shouting at them, and I was doing all those kinds of, things that, I was in that desperation to make sure that I could showcase it to my boss that I was doing well and I had to make my team work, and I was not showing empathy towards them. And what happened is, over the course of a few months, my team walked up to my CEO and they said that, look, we can't work with this manager. And this manager basically is too strict with me. So now from being too lenient, I moved to a space of being too strict. And that's when my CEO made me sit, and he mentioned to me that, Karuna, I know this, that if I give you a task, you will sail through it. What it meant was, he basically gave me a positive feedback saying that I know that you will make it happen. However, the way you go through that process is also something that you need to pay attention to. And when I got that feedback, I realized that how empathetic the CEO was, but he also wanted results. And that is very normal, right? In workplaces, you also want results. You are driving towards result, but you also need to make sure that you are able to be empathetic towards people around you. So that's the feedback I received, and that made me really think personally about what is the style that I would like to take up and build myself in. And over the course of time, I got an opportunity to work with so many people in different parts of the world, and I always kept this in mind, that what is it that I would like to do when it comes to managing people? How do I create a balance? So I learned that balance over the course of time. But imagine if my boss was not sensible enough to read through this, that she's a first-time manager and she's losing track by one, first not making things happen on time, and then second becoming too strict where even she is able to get the result, but then people are not happy. The fact that he could, take a step back and look at it and tell me, I would not have grown so well in my career, because that aspect helped me a lot. So I really look up in that sense, and I feel that there is so much of value that the leader could add because at the right time they told me what was right for me to learn. Having said that, there were a lot of other examples. As I moved forward in my one of the other organizations called Eaton, and there was this colleague of mine who walked up to me and she said there was so much happening in her family, from a children perspective. She'd lost her father, her husband had just gone through the heart attack, and there were a lot of other things that were happening on a personal front. I had to make her sit down, and she was not being able to perform. And when I spoke to her and I tried to build that bond to understand that, hey, I know you can work. So that confidence and trust that I showed in her really made her feel that she was appreciated. That small gesture of me talking like that to her made her feel appreciated. And then we agreed on that what is the method to go about, making this work out. Because she was ready to resign and move on, but then we worked towards a certain way that she wanted some break, she wanted to go back home early for some weeks, etc. And then I allowed her to do a bit of work from home, etc. So over that course of time, we were able to go through her personal crisis. And the fact that I supported her made her stay with the organization for many more years to come. So those are a few examples where I can say that those relationships got created, that trust was built, the communication was done in a way that helped us build that space for each other, where we went ahead and contributed in the best way we could. So those are some examples I really vividly remember of. There are times when we also come across a situation that we have to choose between result and people in workplaces. So let's be honest that there are times that we will have to make those choices depending, and those are very situational. I won't have a right one answer to that, but many a times you have to find ways to communicate back to the people effectively. That's the word, you have to communicate effectively. So consider this, that I gave time. My boss, first of all, gave me time to make me sit down and talk to me, listen to my side of the story, and then gave me the right thing to do. Same ways, when I practiced it in my own workplace with my team member, the skill that helped me was that I listened to her. What was the emotion that she was going through? What did I feel about the entire? I was reminded of my own example, and then I made her sit down and, go through this process of figuring out, okay, what's it that we could do about it. So there are lots of examples that we can relate to that.
Both these organizations that you talked about, Eaton or Bose, are one of the pioneers and known for their high level of emotional intelligence in terms of their practice throughout the organizations. And I had a brief interaction with one of the HR personals during my time in the US when I was visiting the Eaton booth at a career fair. And I met Kelsey Phillips. She was in HR with Eaton there, and I was giving her my 2-minute elevator pitch and trying to create my network and connect with her. And by end of that very brief conversation, she recommended me a book, which was Emotional Intelligence by Harvard Business Review, which was my first, I would say, hands-on and understanding of emotional intelligence, and that was about 4 years ago. So I could connect with experience that we're sharing, and no wonder you were able to practice that in the organization. Both of these, so great stories. Now, to my audience, I want to remind you all that we'll be taking the questions in just a bit. We have understood what emotional intelligence is by far, by also some of the practical examples. Now, Karuna, let's understand from you that what is the application of it? How can our students develop these qualities, or what are the qualities that the students should focus on developing for now? That's what I would like to understand. So some of the skills, some of the traits that they should be looking forward to develop.
So coming from an energy healing and mindfulness space, if you ask me, Shram, that's one of the areas I'm passionate about too. That helps me be emotionally intelligent as well, is being aware of your own emotions. Now, what are some tips and tricks to be able to know what am I feeling? There are times when we don't know. We just say, oh, I'm not feeling good. But what is the emotion? I'm upset, I am depressed. What is that feeling? Frustrated, angry. Sometimes you're not able to pinpoint that. So how do we go about learning this? There are a lot of psychometric tests that are available online, which are free of cost. You can actually Google that and take those tests to know a little bit more about yourself. The other way to know about, which are simple tips and tricks, is if you are interested, please do follow a short few minutes of meditation on a daily basis. That helps you become self-aware and be quiet. So when you practice something like that, you're able to reflect. So that is a skill that not everybody will tell you about, but a lot of leaders who have been very, very successful follow this, that they do, one, meditate. Second, they always look at being physically fit. Not everybody tells you that, but these are two things that they always focus on, because it helps you keep your aura, your energy, body clean. And also at the end of the day, when you meditate, you are able to pause yourself and kind of relax your mind, so to know that what's really going on inside me. And then, of course, as I said, there are other things you could do, like take psychometric tests online. That will give you a lot about you. We are, as human beings, naturally curious about our own selves. So continue to explore and try to know yourself better by doing self-reflections. Every day, if you even give 5 minutes to yourself and just think about, how did my day go well? Okay, ऐसा क्या है? What are some things जो मैंने अच्छी करी? ऐसी क्या चीजें हैं? What are some things that I can do better as I move forward? So that's one of the tips from self-awareness point of view. When I talk about building relationships and understanding emotions of others, you can look at a couple of things. One being, am I listening to that person or am I hearing the person? There is a difference in that. So spending time to listen to that person through your body language, through your, so nodding your head doesn't mean that you're listening to me, but have you understood the feeling behind what I said, the intent behind what I said is the right measure to tell us whether the person has understood what we were saying. Did you feel the same emotion that the communicator was passing to you? That's the right way to be able to judge whether we have understood the communication well. So communicating in a way that you're paying full attention to the person. That's one. And today's time, we have mobiles, we have everything there to distract us. So could you put that aside and give that time and space to the person? So that's majorly called as active listening. And if we will have some time, we'll see a video around active listening, because that's very, very important in building relationships. The other piece being, am I showcasing empathy? It's very, very important to showcase empathy to the other person. Am I treating the other person as a human being at the end of the day? Because that person sitting next to you, in front of you, is also another human being. So am I even treating them effectively, empathetically? If you're, let's say, simple way to know whether a person is empathetic or no is to know how are you treating people who are below your financial class. So let's say if you go, how are you treating your maids, how are you treating your helpers, how are you treating your drivers, how are you treating people when you go to the hotels, they open the doors for you, people who are those kinds of people who whom you could help, those kinds of people. If you are showcasing, respect to them, if the person is showcasing respect to them, it is very clear that they have empathy. So those are a few ways to assess the other person and also showcase. Many a times, let me tell you another thing, many a times we do some activities to please others. So consider this, that when you're looking at self-awareness, were you doing that exercise to please your own self or to others? And similarly, when others are doing it for people around you, try to assess and see that did this person do something genuinely or did that person do something to please other people? So that's something I would leave you with to think and reflect on, because we create a social image and then we know what we are internally. So there is a concept I would leave you with to think and Google and find out more about. It's called as Johari window. So it's a 4-block quadrant which talks about that one aspect is an open area which everybody knows about you and you know about yourself too. There's one quadrant which talks about that there is something that others know about you but you don't know about yourself. And then there is one quadrant which is about you don't, people don't know about it, you know about yourself. and you probably don't want to share it with other people also. And then one quadrant is blind spot, which nobody knows. You are also in the process of exploration. So things become better in relationships when the open area becomes larger, which means that when you start sharing things with other people, and when other people also start sharing things with you, or you seek out for feedback, that is when the relationships, that open area of quadrant becomes larger. So that's where you are able to build that connection through relationships, and you are able to showcase emotional quotient, strong, higher emotional intelligence in that by building those relationships. These are some tips and tricks I can talk about with concepts that could help you. So I'll leave you with a few thoughts and we'll open up for questions. Emotional intelligence, there are, each of us, and we require it. And as I say this to multiple people whenever I do these workshops on this topic, as the AI is becoming popular, so is emotional intelligence. We need to build that up. Human beings will continue to be who we are, and we need to continue to build that relationship with people, and emotional intelligence is the only way to go about it, knowing our own self and knowing others. And then coming to the fact that looking at relationships, one of my ex-bosses always used to say, are you listening to people, what they say, or are you also listening to things that they don't say? So I leave you with that thought as well, because there's a lot that people say with the underlying emotion, with in between words that they're using, the statements that they're making, and there is a lot. If you're especially paying attention to them, you will be able to decode that. And there are multiple ways of doing it, as we said. First of all, knowing your own self better. There are different tools that we talked about, and knowing others' emotions better. Of course, you need to showcase empathy. You need to showcase good listening skills. You need to be there, present with them in a complete human form, in a complete 100% way, give full attention to it. And that's how we build emotional quotient. Know this, the good news is we can all build that. We were all born with that. Think of it, when we were young as a child, or ever observe children, and when their mothers start making noise, or they cry, or they get hit, or they see other children cry, do they not start showcasing emotions? They all show emotions. How did they learn? So actually, human beings are born with empathy. Human beings are born with that natural intelligence. It's just that over the course of social conditionings, of cultures, genders, and different parts of life that we've gone through, experiences of life that we've been through, things change. But good news is we can continue to evolve ourselves. So I'll pause here and over to you, Shran, if you want to open it up for questions.
So Karuna, I have the question number 1 from Prince Yadav. And they say that they're a project manager, and they're asking that how to manage to outlet results with simultaneously cooperating with colleagues. So it's balancing between I think something example that you gave between results and people. So that's a similar question.
Of course, Prince, I think this comes with experience. There's no shortcut to that. But as I said, if you're able to practice some mindfulness techniques, which will help you really calm yourself down, you will be able to find that you are getting much more emotionally intelligent. There are so many things that constantly go on in our minds that stop us from observing things around us. So that's the key space that I would want you to focus on, that how can you listen to things around you with full attention. And that can be only possible when you shut off things that are not required at that moment in your mind. So imagine, let's say somebody is telling you, hey, I want to leave, and suddenly you've already been thinking, oh my God, this person is going on leave, who's going to do my work, what will happen? And you're constantly getting worried, but you did not hear the reason of the leave. So think of it that you missed the fact that the person had a certain critical situation, or he had completed his work even before going on leave. So, there are times when we start thinking of answers to certain statements even before listening to the other person. So my view to this situation would be, it's always about empathetically communicating that the results are important. However, so are you as an employee. So here is what could be a solution. So each situation may be different. So I can give a quick, very short example here. One of the times when there was this employee who walked up to me and he was like, really, there was poor attendance from this employee and he always wanted to, go on, long breaks and then would leave early. There were a lot of things that he had to do like that. So I called up that employee and I made the person speak to me and I said, hey, these are the issues that I'm seeing in your behavior and the work is suffering because of that. The person shared with me that, I'm not enjoying my job and I'm not interested in working. So at that juncture, I could have gotten angry and I could have said that, hey, you're here for a job, you need to work. Yes, you can answer that. It depends on the relationship you share with the person. I had a more formal relationship with the person. So I said, hey, do you think you want to continue with the role that you're in, or do you think you want to explore something else outside? Because this job requires you to do certain tasks in a certain time. However, I understand what could be, if your career aspirations are different, let's have a different conversation altogether. So that made the person think, and then we accordingly moved forward. He was not interested in that job, and ultimately I had to let the person go. So there could be situations like that. So what I'm trying to say is that we have to find a way to balance it. Situations are different, but what will help you is to really pay attention to what the other person is saying, feeling, thinking, and expressing.
So the question that they have asked is that how to be selfless, how to control emotions. Suggest me a tip to control it.
Leave you to think on a question. Why do you want to control emotions? Emotions are energy in motion. You don't need to control them. What you need to do is just modulate them in a way that will work well for you. It's okay to feel angry. It's okay to feel upset, sad, frustrated, depressed. Yes, if you continue to feel that for a very, very long time, which means you've gone in a loop of self-pity. So consider that emotions that are there for human beings are designed like that, as for us, for a reason. Even fear has a purpose for being there as an emotion. So we cannot control emotions. We can leverage them in certain ways. And it's okay to feel emotions. Anybody who said in the past about the fact that you have to leave emotions aside and come to work, sorry, it doesn't work like that. You carry your whole personality to work. So I would say you can modulate your question. When if we talk about controlling, you can't control it. Suppressed emotions, by the way, this is solid research again, and a lot of spiritual teachers talk about it. 85% of your diseases are psychosomatic. They come from suppressed emotions. Only 15% of your diseases are actually physically there. So psychosomatic diseases only come because there are suppressed emotions in our body. So don't think of ever controlling emotions, but just try to move them in a way by self-coaching yourself. And you cannot be selfless. Trust me, anything that you do. Tony Robbins talks about 6 human needs. And as human beings, even if you do voluntary work, even if you do donations, even if you do whatsoever, you do it to fulfill your own needs. So thinking that we will be selfless, not really. I think your language is more from a perspective that maybe you're talking about putting your ego aside and being someone who could, move around and change yourselves easily. I would say just continue to do certain practices like meditations or using reflection times on a regular basis. Do 5-10 minutes of reflections on a daily basis, and that will help you know yourself better. And that's the only way to figure out what are your passions in life or your interests in life.
So we have Manisha asking a couple of questions. One is that which EQ skills are most important in the work environment? And she also adds on that she is an introvert. And also she has a follow-up is about how to tackle the feeling of hopelessness and being stuck.
Okay, so we'll break the questions. By the way, the highest percentage of successful leaders in the corporate world and in the business world are introverts. So you have a big chance and a good chance to be successful in your life and career. So being introvert is not a setback. It's just the way you get your energy. So introverts get energy by being self-reflective and getting energy from their own selves. Extroverts get energy by connecting with other people around them. That's the only thing. What we need to consider is that what are the skills, as you questioned about, in the workplaces. Workplaces, as I mentioned, there are a lot of skills based on your job, but emotional quotient or emotional intelligence is becoming one of the key skill that a lot of companies are looking at. World Economic Forum recently did some research where they looked at what are some skills that are becoming important in the future of work. Of course, analytical skills came up on top, and so did emotional intelligence, active listening. By the way, listening skills are not taught anywhere. You have public speaking skills being taught at multiple places. So listening skills can obviously be, picked up in different workshops that you can do. There are some trainings that are available on Udemy and Coursera, and you can look up for doing some online sessions. Like I'm sure Vadvani Foundation would have something already done on this topic also. So you can look at those trainings and learn about some topics, tips and tricks. We did an 8-minute video today, so you can re-look at this video and learn a lot more from that. So this becomes very important, and as I said, as you continue to progress, and if you keep doing self-reflection, there will be a lot that you will yourself really relate to. There is one more very, very important thing that I can talk about that will help you move fast in your career, is to get a coach for whatever specific area that you think that you need some improvement in. Get a coach for yourself. Also, a lot of people talk about that, okay, what are my areas of strengths and what are my areas of weakness? Okay, you can work on your weaknesses, but I would say if you want to be successful, focus on what are your areas of strength. That's faster. There was this research, I just got to know this yesterday, and maybe you guys need to hear this as well. There is this research that was done by one of the universities, and they had two groups of students that were, put in the study. One of the group was slow learners, was fast learners. While they were putting them through preparation of, the studies, the slow learners only picked up 30% speed to move fast because that was their area of development. But those people who were fast learners or fast readers, they were able to multifold, from 300 speed to, I think it went up to 2800 speed of reading for them, because that was their area. So think about it. If we had trained Virat Kohli to become a scientist, or APJ Abdul Kalam to become a cricketer, or Sachin Tendulkar to become, let's say, a singer, they would have failed drastically. So consider that what are my strengths, and then learn and build up on that. So emotional, getting back to what you're asking, work environments based on your job role, different things will be needed. But as I said, learn more about yourself, and that will help you to reflect and build your strengths. Focus on your strengths. Getting a coach is very, very important. In today's time, it's becoming much more critical. Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Shiv.
No, that's perfect. I think she also, there are a lot of people saying in that they want to have a follow-up session from you, and so
I'll be glad to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you. And also, there were some users asking if you teach some other subjects as well. I would redirect you all to your YouTube channel and explore the range of topics that you have covered already. So a question from Vineet Karuna, that how does emotional intelligence influence personal and professional relationships? And why is it essential for success in today's world? And you have covered a little bit in the session, but if you can throw some light on the first part about influencing personal and professional relationships.
So consider this, that let's say that there is a conflict between your family members or between your colleagues. And if you're able to deal with that conflict in an effective way, it helps you manage the relationships and also find solutions to situations in a creative way. So imagine that at workplace, we always have those kinds of conflicts. We will all have difference of opinions. if you know you are able to build up the skill of managing difference of opinions well, you will do well in your career. And as I said, at the start of the session, IQ might get you a job, but EQ will get you a promotion. So it's about building relationships, and trust me, all places, all organizations work based on relationships. If you have strong relationships with your colleagues, if you have strong relationships at work, home as well, you would find that you are successful in your life. It's not just about how much money you earn. At the end of the day, you also know that. When we look at the definition of success, there is, I think, quite a lot when it comes to the quality of relationship that comes to our life. If you keep having conflicts, you will not be a happy person.
Yeah. So there are a couple of questions that in order to avoid feeling emotionally drained in workplace, any suggestions? And then there was a similar question that usually there are a lot of people in workplace. How to deal with such competitive colleagues?
Competitive colleagues.
Yeah,
competitive
okay,
colleagues. So
colleagues.
these are two different questions. From energy aspect, I would say this is my personal practice. I do some little bit of 10-15 minutes of moving my body, whether it's in terms of walk or quick jumping jacks or any kind of quick stretching exercise. Those few minutes of workout help me manage my energy. The second thing that I do the moment I get up after getting up from the bed is getting ready, etc., is meditate for a few minutes. Trust me, for the 10 years that I've been doing it, it has made my life very, very different from what it was earlier. So, you would know this, that a lot of successful people actually practice a few tools like these, where they would want to manage their energy well. We human beings obviously have limited battery, right? On a day, end of the day, we might feel drained, and there is a lot because, there's so much of energy we're absorbing, so much of it that we're giving away as well. These are 2 tips that have helped me a lot. A few more things I can talk about is, we can't concentrate all the time constantly. So it's important, please know this, that we abuse breaks. It's important to take breaks. And there is a study around this also, when it talked about peak performance. So it says that when you're moving up the ladder, there is a point that you would reach, which is called as a burnout. So before that burnout point is when you need to take a break. Because only when you take that break, you move up the curve again. So there was this study that was done and that talks about this. So the breaks are very important. And when there are times when you feel overwhelmed, practice deep breathing exercises, and maybe one of the other sessions we can do a little more on the mindfulness tips. We could talk about deep breathing exercises, and I can experientially take you there. Those help a lot. And shifting, NLP, there is a concept called as disassociating and associating, and doing things like that. So you suddenly, when you shift, move up and move around, let's say you're sitting on your seat for a long time, just get up and move around. Those are things when you're able to shift yourself. Drinking a lot of water, these are basic things, I would say, and that helps you manage your energy. If you're constantly thinking about something all the time, it will drain you. So you need to break your mind by shifting to do other things. Never forget creative things that you really enjoy doing. Those are very, very important. So you will have to break, because you know this, that when you come back after the break, you will do better at what you're doing. You will be much more focused. I remember one of these times I was working for 1 full month, not even one Saturday or one Sunday off. This was very recent, maybe 2 years back I'm talking about. And after 1 month, I had a brain fog. What it meant was, if somebody was saying something, I could not figure out what to make decisions on. And that's really, that was such a bad experience for me, that I really realized that how important breaks are. And this is just 2 years back, So you can understand that we all go through this. It's not that I'm an expert on something, just that because I can talk about it, because I've experienced this more than what you have, and probably I can share from my personal experiences. So, take breaks. That helps a lot. And shift. Don't talk about the same topic. Shift to something else. Okay, the second question was how to deal with competitive people. If it is healthy competition, good enough. But when you think it is competition, are you jealous of them or are they jealous of you? You don't know that. First of all, figure that out. Second, if there is competition, there's nothing wrong in that. But as I said, will have better relationships in the organization, will do better. So that's a trick I can tell you. Build relationships, they take you a long way. It could be all kinds of relationship, outside work, within the organization, personal life, professional life, relationships, building, making that effort to build that relationship always. And it's not just about taking from that relationship. Are you being a giver in that relationship too? That's important. So when you come back to competitive people, fair enough, they may have their own streak to bring to the table. But are you more confident about yourself? If you're not confident about yourself, consider that if they have a better skill than you, consider that as an inspiration to learn more and put jealousy aside and think of things that you can learn from, appreciate them and move forward. So appreciation of other people, accepting them the way they are, and then considering that, okay, what is the inspiration I can get from this person? That's a growth mindset. That's the growth mindset, and that is going to take you further. That's emotional quotient. That's emotional intelligence. So don't get into the thought of, okay, I need to compete with that person. You bring your own strengths to the table. Know them better, and you'll do better. Okay, Rishan, back to you.
We'll keep this as our last question. So, how do you handle criticism at work while maintaining your composure?
I would say criticism happens. It's happened multiple times, and there have been a lot of examples that I have in my own workplaces where I have had colleagues who were criticizing me in front of me, behind me. I think the way to close that criticism or not get bothered with that is that you need to know your own strengths well. And if you think that the criticism is relevant, take it as a feedback. It's okay to put your ego aside, because there are a lot of things that we need to continue to learn. So always, if you are in a lifelong learner mode, you will know this, whether this criticism is relevant. If it is, appreciate that criticism and take it. If you think that it's not relevant and you are being criticized for no reason, you can always in your mind be strong enough to know that what are my strengths. So there have been times when, let's say, somebody walked up to me and she said, look, I know this, that this is what you would like to, I'm just giving a generic, I'm not taking much time, but I know this, that you've been, trying to talk to my team members and you did not do things well. You tried to cross the channel and you went ahead and spoke to the member and gave her the work, etc., etc. So I had to look up in the eye of the person and I said, look, there was no intention for me to cross the channel. If you did not like, we will not do this in future. However, this is what I intended to do. I left it at that, but I saw this, that when the person went back, she made a huge hue and cry about it, and she spoke to 20 other people and made a lot of noise, and there were 5 other people coming and telling me about this situation where I made a mistake. I said, fair enough, it happened, but this is what it is. What I can do is not make it happen next time. So that composure of being confident that, okay, it can happen, I accept it and I want to move on. But if somebody wants to defame you and make noise about it, you leave it at that point, because it'll settle down after a while.
Got it. I think you also touched that how to deal with toxic colleagues around, and criticism. Wonderful. So at least I personally am feeling that I've become a better version of myself, and I'll certainly work on so many things that you've talked about, starting with exercising to taking breaks, which is super important, how to channelize my emotions better. And there was so much for the audience to take away in the entire session. So I would like you all to revisit when the session is up on our YouTube channel, and also revisit the resources that we'll be sharing with you very soon.